All right. So for prepping for this Inservice on infection control, which I know everyone finds to be one of the most boring, I wanted to change it up a little bit because usually we focus on all the different departments and how infection control is handled in all the departments. But with sticking of the theme of if it's to be, it's up to me, I wanted to focus on every individual and what your role is in infection control. So like I said, this is usually one of the most boring topics, and you guys get tired of hearing about hand washing and proper hand hygiene. But it's actually not that boring because pop culture has been regurgitating this subject out to us over and over and over and over since 1929. What am I talking about? I'm talking about zombies. So The Walking Dead, World War Z, I Am Legend, and my personal favorite is Game of Thrones. They all have the common theme of zombies. So in 1929, that's when the term zombie first came into our language, and it's never lost its popularity. In fact, it's so popular that if you go to the CDC blog, that website there, it has Preparedness 101, the zombie apocalypse, and it will tell you step by step what exactly you need to do to prepare for the zombie apocalypse. But what does this have to do with infection control? What's a zombie? Lisa, you're looking at me like this has nothing to do with infection control. You're crazy. Does anyone know what a zombie is? It's a dead person, right? Someone said a disease. Yeah, it's a human being who's been infected with a disease to which there's no vaccination or cure, which that's one of the building blocks of infection control. So what's the big deal? We here at Lancaster care for a very vulnerable population. Approximately 1 in 10 patients will get an infection while they are in a healthcare settings. Our residents in particular are even more at risk because they have many comorbidities, they're frequently non-compliant, and their immune systems just don't work the way they once did. So when we look at all these factors combined, their chances of developing an illness go up, which is why they rely on us so much to maintain their health and keep them illness-free. So last month, we had 3 out of our 5 stations go into quarantine because we had a total of 6.7% of our residents test positive for influenza. 80% of this could have been prevented with simple proper hand hygiene. It's also a federal regulation that the state looks at to ensure the facility is maintaining an infection prevention program to prevent the spread of diseases and infections. But the state loves to tag facilities for what? Yes, hand washing. How many people get in their vehicles and you put on your seatbelt and you don't even realize you've put your seatbelt on? Right, I'm that way. Hand hygiene should be no exception. It should be the same thing, that you don't even realize you've washed your hands or sanitized your hands because you do it all the time. So the concept you need to remember is wash in, wash out. Every time you enter or exit a room, wash in, wash out. Every time you put on gloves or take them off, wash in, wash out. Every plate you touch, glass, tray, wash in, wash out. I know I'm starting to sound like Mr. Miyagi, but students recently have reported that they've watched our staff go entire shifts and not perform any hand hygiene the entire time. So if 80% of diseases are transferred by touch, how many diseases could we prevent by simple hand hygiene? The diarrhea still remains the second leading cause of childhood death, but again, proper hand washing completed could reduce those rates by 40%. The most critical times for hand washing are before preparing food and after going to the bathroom. So I have a very personal question. How many of you pull out your phone when you're sitting on the toilet?
I do.
Right, a lot of people do. And then when you're feeding our residents, how many of you are at the dining room table like this, feeding our residents? You're not very sneaky, we see you all. But how many of you disinfected your phone from going to the toilet to the dining room table? My guess is probably nobody, because we don't think to disinfect our phones. So not only did you not provide our resident with pleasant conversation and a good dining room experience, you also fed them microscopic fecal matter. So remember to scrub extra long on your fingertips and under your nails, as that's where most of the bacteria is living. And have you ever shaken someone's hand and they just washed their hands, so they're kind of wet, and then they apologize and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just washed my hands." Those wet hands are 1,000 times more likely to spread bacteria than dry hands. So, Darth Vader has a little message for everybody.
this is Tyler. Tyler, with Grammarly's help, is writing an email to his boss, Anita.
It's very important, my Padawans. Hand hygiene. Always wash in after you've touched patients. I use a little bit of this, and then I make sure to count the Imperial March. Dun 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 dun. Okay, that's way too long. I might have miscalculated. Maybe just, happy birthday twice. But make sure to wash your hands, because otherwise you will spread pestilence throughout the galaxy. Have you ever had C. diff?
So then we're just going to review the 5 easy steps of hand washing, which is also in our flyers this month. So the very first one, you wet your hands with clean warm water and apply soap. Second, lather your hands by rubbing them together with the soap. 3, scrub your hands for at least 20 seconds or singing the happy birthday song twice. 4, rinse your hands well under clean running water. And finally, dry your hands using a clean towel. So I want you to remember some facts I'm going to give you about hand washing while we do this next activity. But 75% of women and less than 50% of men wash their hands after going to the bathroom. So keep those numbers in mind. And I want you to take one glove and put it on and pass it. Okay. And Galena, you should be the last one to need a glove. So you won't have to pass the box. Okay, and then I'm just gonna shake your hand.
Okay, great. We're gonna shake hands.
No.
You have to.
Done it.
Oh, there we go. Get it all
Oh, yeah,
shaken.
okay.
You're good.
Sit on it.
Does it still sticky or have chocolate?
No,
No, it's gone, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you think about the statistics of how many people are washing their hands, if I don't wash my hands and I go and shake hands and everyone does that with no hand hygiene, you can feel it, but then there's still microscopic particles that you aren't even seeing or feeling. You guys can take off your gloves. And then hand sanitizer. You should be doing this whenever you're unable to use soap and water. So when we're talking about washing in and washing out, hand sanitizer counts. So it's best practice just to carry it in your pocket. But to be effective, it needs to be at least 60% alcohol. So if you're out and see some smaller ones that you can carry in your pocket, as long as it's 60% alcohol, it's gonna work. But it does not get rid of all germs, chemicals, and pesticides. So obviously, if your hands are visibly dirty, you need to wash them, but you should still be washing after using sanitizer every so often. But since you need to wash your hands when they're visibly dirty, if you have stool on them and you put sanitizer on, all you did was sanitize poop. So make sure you're washing your hands as well. 30 seconds of using hand sanitizer kills as much bacteria as 2 full minutes of hand washing. So I'm also gonna let you guys just use hand sanitizer and then we'll talk about. It does?
Yeah. It's breaking my hand out.
Okay, so to use it, you apply the gel product to your hand, rub your hands together for about 20 seconds. And they used to say that you could use it 3 times before actually having to wash your hands, and that's not really true.
I wash my hands after once.
Yeah,
I have to.
that's good. Yeah, if you have to. But you can use your hand, unless they're visibly dirty, you can use hand sanitizer as much as you want to. You'll know when it's time to wash them though, because they'll start to develop a film on them and feel funny. So then that's kind of your signal to go ahead and scrub them up. And I'm someone who, you can tell me to wash my hands all you want and all the reasons of why I should, but I'm not going to do it until you really tell me the whys of infection control. So, here's a quick crash course in microbiology. Can you get the same illness twice? No, you cannot. No. Your body remembers what germs it has fought in the past, so when you become ill, those antibodies that your body developed, they go and fight the virus. So when you're sick with an illness that you think you've had before, it's actually a new illness that has slight mutations, so your body doesn't recognize it. So that's kind of how vaccinations work, is they give you an injection and then your body recognizes the proteins of it, so that it develops the antibodies to go and fight the virus. The CDC works to try and figure out what strains, for example, influenza, what strains of influenza they think are going to be most prominent in our area. So that's how they develop our vaccinations. The problem is if you get a flu shot and then you still end up with influenza, it's because you came into contact with a different strain than what you were vaccinated from. And then antibiotic resistance has become one of the most urgent threats to public health. So when bacteria invade our body and make us ill, we get on antibiotics to help fight the infection. The problem is that bacteria has begun to develop the ability to detect these drugs that have been designed to kill them. So now we have developed superbugs. So with superbugs, we don't have any medication available to fight infection off. So that's why everything starts with you guys. Proper hand hygiene, covering your cough, staying home when you're sick, and getting your recommended vaccinations not only keep you safe, but they keep our residents safe as well. Because if our residents develop an illness with a superbug, and we don't have any medications to fight it, what are we gonna do? All we can do at that point is just throw up prayers for Gertrude in 103 for her UTI. That's not gonna have the same effect. Has anyone seen the movie Contagion? It's got Gwyneth Paltrow and Matt Damon. We're gonna watch the trailer for it, and I want you to just keep it in mind because we're going to use it to understand the chain of infection.
Searching for family vacations? Find it with Vrbo. They search millions of amazing vacations.
It's a groundbreaking ceremony for a new factory.
Did you mention seeing anyone who was sick? Anyone on a plane, the airport?
No, she said she was jet lagged.
The average person touches their face 3 to 5 times every waking minute. In between, we're touching doorknobs, water fountains, and each other.
Beth, no, go up to your room, honey.
So we have a virus with no treatment protocol and no vaccine at this time.
You had a seizure this morning, Beth.
She had a history of seizures
No.
and allergies.
As of last night, there were 32 cases.
Unfortunately, she did die.
Right. Can I go talk to her?
Mr. Amoff, your wife is dead.
What are you talking about? What happened to her? What happened to her?
Is there any way someone could weaponize the bird flu? Is that what we're looking at?
Someone doesn't have to weaponize the bird flu. The birds are doing that.
Watch this. It's transmission, so we just need to know which direction.
On day 1, there were 2 people, and then 4, and then 16. In 3 months, it's 1 billion. That's where we're headed.
They're calling out the National Guard. They're moving the president underground. People will panic. It will tip over.
The truth is being kept from the world.
Cook your samples, destroy everything.
Hello. I need you to get me the names of everyone who serviced this room. It's an emergency.
You can't panic now.
I know.
I'm gonna get you home. I got people too, Dr. Cheever. We all do.
Don't talk to anyone. Don't touch anyone. Stay away from other people.
We're not sick!
It's figuring us out faster than we're figuring it out.
It's mutating.
So throughout that whole movie, they walk you through like day 14, this is how many people are infected, this is how many people have died, day 60, 3 months, and it ends up like wiping out half the world's population. But at the very end of the movie, they show you where it all started. So spoiler alert here, if anyone was planning on watching
That coronavirus is what's going around.
Right, we'll talk about that. something about coronavirus. That's kind of how this movie plays out too. So what's happening with the coronavirus is everyone's that's infected in the U.S. is coming to Camp Ashland because UNMC is the leader for infectious disease. That's why when everyone had Ebola, they brought it to us too. Because then we get all the physicians, scientists, the CDC, they all come together, look at the patients, and they work to figure out what's going on with the disease, how is it being transmitted, how can we develop medications to fight it, do we need vaccinations? So that's kind of what's going on at Camp Ashland. So this is the chain of infection. So it starts with the infectious agent, and as long as there's no break in the chain, it ends with a susceptible host who, without knowing it, continues to spread the infection. So the first step is the infectious agent. So this could be bacteria that invades, and then we often have antibiotics available to help our body fight the infection. Viruses, they work by weakening our healthy cells, which cause us to become ill. Fungi work as decomposers by mostly infecting plants and animals. Histoplasmosis is a severe lung infection transmitted by bird or bat droppings, which we saw in the movie. Protozoa are acquired through contaminated food, water, or mosquito bites. So if we're thinking about the movie Contagion, what was the infectious agent? The bat droppings? Yeah. Second link is the reservoir. So this is where the infectious agent lives. It can be a person, animal, plant, soil, or any substance where it can live and multiply. It's usually in moist or warm areas. Those are some of the surfaces that they're frequently seen. And animals often serve as reservoirs for disease that infect humans. So referencing the movie again, what would have been the reservoir? The pig. Yep, exactly. Then you have the portal of exit, and this is how the infectious agent leaves the host to enter another host. This can be done from a runny nose, a cough, a draining wound. So again, in Contagion, what would you say the portal of exit was? Pig's mouth. Mm-hmm. And then you have the mode of transportation. So that's how the agent is carried to the next host, and this could be done directly from touching, biting, kissing, sexual contact, indirect, water, blood, doorknobs, getting bit by an insect, airborne, coughing or sneezing, or the fecal-oral route from sewage-contaminated water that we use for drinking, washing, or preparing foods. And they kind of said this in the trailer of the movie that in Contagion it was directly, which we saw with the chef anyways. Then you have your portal of entry, and this is the open door that allows the germ to enter. So what would you say in Contagion it was?
Touching her face.
Well, the chef had bare hands, and then he had his fingers in the animal's mouth, and like he was rubbing all over the teeth and everything, so he could have, who knows what he had on his hands already. And then finally you have the susceptible host. So this is the body that contains the portal of entry, and the susceptible host is much more at risk. So like our geriatric patients that we take care of, and you guys as well. As caregivers, we tend to not take care of ourselves. We don't get enough sleep. We eat on the go, and so it's really important to take care of yourself so that you're not such a susceptible host. So in the movie Contagion, who was the susceptible host? The chef, because now he just went around and he's shaking hands with all of his customers. So him and Gwyneth did not make it. And that's how you have the spread. So the infectious agent has just been created to produce another cycle of infection, and the only way to stop the spread is to break the chain, either by washing your hands, disinfecting, proper linen handling, following proper precautions, and proper disposal of hazardous waste. And so then we also saw in the trailer that Gwyneth then went to the casino or wherever, and she's like gambling and holding dice, and who knows what she did all night. So with disinfecting, the things that we look at is the speed of the disinfection, its ability to clean, the personal health and safety of our residents and ourselves, and then the cost. So we have alcohol wipes. Alcohol wipes have to be at least 70% to be effective, and then it has to air dry. The germicidal wipes have a 4-minute kill time. Those are the green top wipes, and when it says 4-minute kill time, that means it has to be actively wet for 4 minutes. So the quaternary ammonia wipes, those are our purple top wipes, and those have the 2-minute kill time, and that's why we kind of wrap them in our AccuChecks in the wipe, is because it has to be actively wet for 2 minutes. This, however, is not effective for blood, TB, or C. diff, which was why we have to use the green top wipes at times. So thinking of disinfection, how often do our residents wash their hands?
Not very much.
They don't.
Some of them don't. Some of them do, some of them don't.
And then they grab their walkers or their wheelchairs and then they go off. How often do we disinfect their equipment? We don't. And then they all share the sit-stand sling. How often is that being disinfected? And then they go to activities where we have bingo chips and music books, or they go to the bistro. I mean, we all do these things anyway, but hopefully we're using proper hand hygiene. So it's just some things to think about is trying to get our residents' hands more clean.
What about the disinfectant spray for the slings? The spray?
I don't know. Do we have any?
No, like, can you guys get some?
Probably.
Cause that stuff, you can get it for $1. The disinfectant spray.
Oh, like the Lysol?
And it's 99 cents and it's way quicker than trying to hunt wipes down if we don't have them.
Okay. I will look into it.
I
Thank
use
you.
it at home.
I just was gonna say, if anyone has ideas, please share them, so thank you. Linen handling, to get ill from linen handling is very rare. It's only happened 12 times in the past 43 years, and it usually comes from exposure to dust in storage areas, process failure during the laundering, PPE compliance, and linens only have a 30-day shelf life. But the area around sinks in public bathrooms are 90% covered in bacteria. And where do we keep our linen carts? Right across from a sink, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then are they covered?
Sometimes.
Usually not. I know every time I go in, I always have to cover them. So how clean are our linens really at that point? So just remember to always keep them covered. And then if you're carrying it, hold it away from your body when carrying. Bag it at the point of use. So if you strip a bed, go ahead and put it in the soiled laundry bags, and then use proper PPE when handling. And then you guys, the CNAs, you guys had all done for your annual skills checkoff, proper putting on and taking off of PPE, which everyone put it on appropriately, but we had problems with taking it off. Will you meet my guinea pig, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So we just start with hand hygiene. And you don't have to tie the second one, you can just tie it around your neck.
This stuff's hot.
I know, it's very hot.
Oh,
And the Terry's, it's okay.
Ripped it already.
I only have medium gloves up here. So in nursing school, they teach us that when we're in our PPE to pretend we're covered in peanut butter when we're taking it off. Okay, perfect. So then to take it off, you're gonna start with your arms and you kind of pull the gown off with your gloves, start at your arms. Because you have to think your gloves are now soiled. So then you pull everything off, yep, and then pull it down your arms. And then take your gown and your gloves off together to make one, like roll it into a ball. Perfect. And so now your hands are considered clean, so that's why you take your mask off last. And then you would do hand hygiene. Thank you very much. So we're just going to review precautions real quick. So standard precautions, this is just when we wear gloves because we're expecting to be exposed to blood, body fluids, mucous membranes, non-intact skin. And then sometimes, depending on your anticipated exposure, you might need to add a gown. So this is just what we do all the time. There's also enhanced barrier precautions. This isn't something we do yet, but infectious disease does teach us we might need to start because state is going to start patrolling this as well. The problem is we haven't done it yet because it's kind of a beast to take on. Because what they're suggesting is that we use gloves and gown prior to all high contact care activity. This would include dressing, bathing, transferring, hygiene cares, changing linen, or device and wound care. So pretty much any interaction we would have with a resident, they would want us to do gown and gloves. So we haven't been able to put it into practice because they don't even know how they want to approach it, but it's something to bring up. And then finally, we just have contact precautions. So this is for our residents who are infected or colonized with an MDRO. That stands for multi-drug resistant organism. So when we were talking about superbugs, that's what we were talking about. So when they are on contact precautions, this is when we get the red bags up with all of our PPE in it. It tells us what PPE we need before entering the room. We try and get them on isolation or in a private room if we can, and then that's when we also don't let them come to activities, and then we start serving all their food on undisposable equipment. So finally, it's just up to you guys. We're the ones who spread the infection, and we are the only ones who can stop it by breaking one link in the chain. So just remember to always wash in and wash out. Do you have any questions? That's all I got. Thank you.
Brittany,